Welcome to the Integrate Intelligently podcast with Jeff Brickler. Today we are excited to be again connected with Scott Brickler, the CEO of CAD Talk. And after a week off while vacation with my family, I am back in the saddle. Very excited to be working with Scott again, and then to also welcome a new face to the CAD Talk podcast, one of our guests, Steve Mould. So thanks, Steve, for showing up. Scott, maybe first you say a few words, and then Steve, maybe you.
Thanks. It's good to be back, to have us both on here again. I think we had some technical difficulties last week, so it's good to have everybody back on. And welcome, Steve. Also, thanks for showing up, which I thought was kind of funny. You said that, but nonetheless, it's great to have you. We're excited about the conversation today.
So, Steve, can you introduce yourself? Who you are, what you've been involved with. I think, Steve, if I remember correctly, you've been working in ERP for a minute, for a few days, and so can you tell us a little bit about your kind of where you started in the ERP and what you your background, how you came to that?
Yes, certainly. Thank you again for the invitation to come on your podcast. Background is that I've been in ERP for about 30 years. And I've had the privilege really of working all over the world on global projects, working with SAP, IFS, and lots of other ERP systems. In that time, I've been really fortunate to work with lots of great teams and lots of customers. And the common problems that we encounter really are around, obviously, data and its integrity, and looking at business processes and trying to refine them and make them more efficient where they add lots more value, and trying to get consistency of processes are all key real areas. So obviously the CAD Talk product that I've come across and had the opportunity to work with on several projects, this brings a great dimension to projects and the ability to integrate the engineering and the operations teams together to really optimize those pieces of information, which often, if they're not managed properly, can cause real difficulties within an organization. So I'm really the background that I've got has highlighted some requirements for getting better data integrity, and to try and integrate the design and engineering and manufacturing processes. So products that do that really excite me, and the opportunity to come on today and be with you two guys is a real pleasure.
So, Steve, what's your education background? How did you get into this? I'm afraid that maybe I'm like the least qualified on this call, because I know that Scott's an engineer and has that skill set. I believe you started in engineering too, so making me feel a little inadequate here.
Well, I think I was very fortunate to go and leave school and go into engineering. So I worked at General Motors in a car plant, and I worked in the engineering side. So that gave me the opportunity and a very broad grounding to go around the whole of assembly plant, press, paint shop, assembly, final finish. Also all of the maintenance, facilities, management. So just getting a very broad exposure really to engineering. And I really enjoyed that. And I sort of went to college, studied engineering, got a degree in engineering, and then basically went from there into operations management. So in a manufacturing facility that designed and engineered and installed and commissioned very, very big pieces of capital equipment, very complex in the nuclear industry, in heavy engineering like materials process industry, hot rolling mills, cold rolling mills, Zensineer mills, all very complex mechanical handling equipment. And through that process, I obviously was immersed in engineering, working with lots of very, very talented engineers. And yeah, it's just my lifeblood really, is just working with those people, gaining from their experience and understanding what makes things work, and how to measure accurately and make sure the quality of what's being delivered is not tampered with and is consistent. All of those kind of skills as a young kid really come into play when you're actually looking to deliver and manage big complex projects. So it's not wasted at all, and it's that background. I'm sure Scott will agree. Having served an apprenticeship and worked on projects and worked in teams, it gives you so much opportunity and skills really to be able to translate that into what we do now, which is in implementing successfully ERP systems and integrating them into PLM.
During your career, like Steve, what got you into the ERP? I know you said you started on engineering, kind of capital equipment, kind of similar to how I started as well, it sounds like. And then were you in the middle of an ERP implementation and kind of got sucked into the mix? Or
yeah, that's exactly what happened, Scott. So I was
happens to all the good people. Happens to all the good people.
I was in a corridor. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
That's right. They pulled you in. I said, "Here."
Went, hey, you're quite keen. Come and have a look at this project we want to do, and it's SAP. It'll be a great career move for you, but we want you to be involved in the project and help make it a success. And then I did that. And then after that project, they said, hey, we'd like you to be the operations manager in the production facility. I want you now to gain the benefits from the software, and let's make sure it all works and transforms the business and moves into business as usual. So, yeah, it's funny how your career can take different turns. I didn't plan it, but then once I'd got that under my belt, I did quite a lot of references for the VAR, the value added reseller, and eventually the VAR came and said, hey, would you like to come and work for us? So I moved away from engineering management and delivery into a much more pre-sales, implementation, delivery services type role in a software company. I spent 7 years working for SAP-ish, and then moved across to IFS and spent 17 years with IFS as a partner. So yeah, that's you just couldn't plan it really, but that's effectively how I got into ERP. And in ERP, the roles that I've predominantly done is consulting in supply chain engineering projects, and some of the things like CRM, and then gone into project management. So actually been responsible for delivering the projects, and then it transpired then that they would drop me into projects that were failing or had challenges, and I'd have to turn those projects around and work with the business teams at the client to gain confidence, re-baseline the project, identify what the root causes were, and then put corrective action plans in place to make it success.
So what's that? Most people don't say, hey, put me in, coach, where there's a problem, right? Most people don't want that. So like what about that was interesting to you? Or was it one of those situations where somebody just grabbed you and said, here, go fix this?
Well, I think it was because I had turned around a couple of projects that were difficult, and you then get yourself a little bit of a reputation that if there is a very, very difficult project, then a safe pair of hands is what we're looking for. So, I wouldn't have all of the drama and the fuss. I'd just go in and try and turn things around and work with the client. And often it's a balance, isn't it? Sometimes it's the software vendors' challenges in delivery and resource. Sometimes it's the same on the customer side. They haven't got the right people in the right posts, and they're not available. So there's some real key lessons in lots of delivery type roles, is to make sure we've got the right scope, that we've got the right resources, we've got a decent plan that we're all working to, and we all share the common goals, and trying to establish that very early on in a project so we don't lose time is again a key to success within certainly ERP, but also obviously into CAD integration. They're all, if you like, best practice processes, to ensure that we have success and we don't take too long. If we take too long, it's not good for the customer. It's not good for the service provider. So we have to be efficient, effective, add the value, and then we'll come back for some more references that, hey, use CAD Talk. They're great.
Yeah, so that's something that we've been discussing here internally, is about, like, a lot of times on these projects, you find out that the customer, maybe even the software partner or VAR, or even the service provider, sometimes have bigger eyes than stomachs, right? Like, maybe you want to take off a big thing, right? They want to do a big bang, right? It's like, I want to get through. It's almost seen like, I don't know if you've experienced this. It's like they want to get it all done, right? It's like, I got to slog through this pain, but once this pain's over, then I don't have to touch it ever again. Do you find that could be a challenging mindset, or?
It is a challenging mindset, and I find that if you can break things down into smaller bite-sized chunks and get them delivered regularly rather than a big bang at the end, that's a much safer and lower risk approach to an implementation. So if you take a CAD integration, maybe you can break it down into smaller elements of what you need to integrate, and you could get the business moving forward with some of those smaller elements, build confidence, and get the users starting to own the processes, but not big bang so it's overwhelming, but just in a controlled. So instead of it being, let's say, 4 or 5 months, let's say that we have every month a drop that is a deliverable that's adding value. I think that's a much nicer way to go.
Yeah. So in your experience, I mean, it's got to happen not just with CAD integration, but in any type of software, right? Like, because like IFS and SAP are big packages. People may want to, like, there are critical things, right? Purchasing, finance that you have to do, but other ancillary or other side situations or projects or areas where the customer really wants to do that. How do you piece that up so that you say, hey, let's get you working with something now, get it live, and then hold them off for that second bite of the apple, or the third bite, like, because as I mentioned, I don't know if you think you have experienced this, that people really want to get it done, right? Like this.
Yeah. I think it's very much dependent on the customer and their requirements. So the customer, if you like, that statement that the customer's king, it's true, is it's their project, and we're there to help and support them and make it a success with them. But if they are, it depends on the type of business they are. So if they have ancillary type processes that are currently done in spreadsheets or third-party products, and they're trying as a whole to bring into an integrated solution, there's an opportunity then to sort of break that down into smaller deliverables and get those things in. However, if it's a company that's like a manufacturing company that's project specific, they may have to go finance, purchasing, manufacturing projects. That there's a sort of a definitive route map to get to where they're trying to go. And they may have integral systems that have dependencies that say, actually, I can't break this down. It's got to be big bang. So it's very much dependent on the client and their requirements and their current landscape. So their current processes, their current landscape can have an impact on how we design the implementation. But I think when both parties come together, identify what the primary strategic objectives are, then you formulate a plan that the customer actually starts to own. And that's so important, is it can't be the software vendor's plan. It has to be the customer's plan, because they are ultimately going to be responsible for it post go live and in that transition into business as usual.
Yeah, that's a good point. So what are some lessons you've learned to get that buy-in, right? Like, what are some tips that you say someone is maybe new to project management, or new to, or less, hasn't have 30 years experience, or maybe is not as skilled as you in turning around projects?
I think
what steps would you take?
I'd say the secret, Jeff, is first of all, understanding what the scope definition is on any project. If you don't know what the scope is and what the deliverables need to be, then you're in trouble from the start. And I often see projects that have selected software, have initiated a project, and then everybody's in the room going, what's next? What do we do? What is it that we want? And so what that is a false start. So you've got the team together, you've got the software installed, but nobody really knows, and there's no leader.
Right.
Okay. So that's the thing to avoid. So part of your initiate project has got to be define the scope, define the resources, set clear deliverables, clear timescales. This isn't rocket science, really. Although I did have a client that I could say that, and it was.
It was, right. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. It was. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was rocket science. Yeah. That's very good. Yeah. Yeah. What do you think makes it challenging if it's not rocket science, what makes it so challenging? Because, of course, we hear horror stories about ERP implementations going bad and things not working.
Well, what that is if there's a disconnect between the scope definition and the people that are leading the project and if you like, the subject matter experts, that they don't agree with the scope definition and they all have different ideas. Now, in some projects, I've been involved in global projects where I've got 20 different customer sites all around the world, and none of them work to a standard set of processes. They all have evolved, right? So how do you standardize and realign and optimize 20 different sites? It's a big challenge. So those are often the reasons why projects stall. They don't come out the starting gates quickly, because you've got people who are not aligned. Right, even today in their existing business, in their current state, it's a bit of a mess. So if you're a software vendor going into that, to implement ERP, you've got to recognize that, and then you've got to try and come up with strategies that help the client understand what the critical processes are. And then, because there's some things you take a bullet for in life, and there's other things that you won't. So you've got to know what battles are important in the project, and others that are not so important, and you let them stay as they are. But you're dealing with change management, and Jeff, that's a soft skill,
right?
And it's a very, very difficult skill in an implementation, because you're dealing with people. You're trying to look at the impact of the change, not just on the organization, but on the role. And you'll see in organizations that there are people that have been there a long time, and they've got all the information, they've got all the power and the knowledge, and they're very protectionist about that, and they feel threatened if there's a big change coming. And so I don't think they should feel threatened, because I think it's an opportunity to actually take away the mundane type repetitive processes and give them a more fulfilling added value process that is more about the analytical, strategic thoughts, so they're not sort of in the day-to-day operational, mundane tasks. So I think managing that change is a challenge, and I've seen really good practice, and I've seen some challenging practices as well. And people make projects a success.
Right.
100%.
Like a business, right? Because it is the business. Just like, I make no secret that I was a teacher and years ago, and in a lot of ways it makes sense. Like this new career I have in the last decade, it's like I've seen the same thing. As the relationships, the people make the success of a classroom, of a business, of a project, of anything. And how important those skills are, I think, especially I know because we work in engineering and manufacturing companies, so you get a lot of folks who are very technical, very skilled with those, the hard side of. I actually tell some of our team, like, the hard part isn't figure out the technical. Like, that's pretty easy, actually. It's like it has a finite answer or several finite answers. But when you're working with people, whether that's going to be your own kids, for me, when I was a teacher, it's my students, now working with customers, and then, if we have staff that we work with, like there's all these things that relationship, that people skills is really that's the one you have to work on the most. Would you say that that's a fair assessment?
I would say that's a very good assessment. I think certainly from my experience over the years, as I've got older, I've tended to enjoy the mentoring and the coaching side and the development of the team. And maybe 15, 20 years ago, I'd have been the one that was pushing and wanting to get things done, and maybe not being as good a team player as I should have been, right? But age and experience has come, and the realization is that the team is much more successful as a team than as individuals. So trying to make sure that information is shared, common goals are set, good rapport, integrity in the team and transparency, making sure that everybody feels valued. All of these things are really important to get success in any project. But I really think that those high values are worth keeping the bar high, and ensuring that if people are struggling, that they know that they can come and talk, and a problem shared is a problem halved, isn't it? So making sure that they know that they're not on their own. No idea is stupid either. That's the other thing, is to have an environment where you feel that you can share, you're not going to be criticized. And I've heard some real gems come out from people that thought this is a bit wacky, and they've shared it, and everyone around the table's gone, wow, that's a different perspective, but wow, that's got some legs, that could work. So I think all of those things about the culture of a project, the relationships of people in the project, they're all very, very special. And I've had the privilege of leading lots of teams, and often the teams, I don't pick the people, the team is picked for me. So I then have to be embedded in that team and help them work to put them all in the same direction, and give them the skills and some of my experience to help them really get the best out of the implementation project. That's my experience.
I was going
to go ahead, Scott.
I was going to say that it's funny. I think that's a great point about ERP implementation, or any kind of IT project or large project. I think that you get a lot of companies or a lot of people who think that if I just buy the software, then that will fix my issue. That'll fix the organizational issue. And a lot of it's and I think a lot of failed implementations happen with that kind of thought. They don't kind of get the buy-in from the team, or that. I think about that company you talked about that had 20 locations. You got to kind of, almost got to get that. You got to kind of get that phone call with all 20 organizations and get everybody on the same page, and then realize we need new software. But I think a lot of people say, well, it's really easy to go pick a software and then buy it. Do it. The hard work is actually having those conversations. Yeah.
Yeah. So Steve, we met on a project, and you're in the UK, if people couldn't tell, and we're here in the United States. And I remember, to your point with the relationships, one of the I was traveling over for another event, and I remember it was important to me that the project was kicking off, you were coming in there. It was important for me for the relationship to build. I remember thinking, I need to go to this customer, even though it will be challenging for me or harder on me. I've done it multiple times. I try to do that because it's so important in my mind to build that relationship, to know that. That's why I also will meet a customer or do a demonstration or meet a customer early in my hour. So if a customer can meet 10 a.m. in the UK, it's 5 a.m. my time, I would commit to getting up and doing that, because for me, it's like I want to build that trust right? I'll come, even though it's, across the pond and I got to travel and I'm going to be there maybe 3 or 4 hours or even half a day. Showing that you're willing to do those things helps to build that. At least in my mind, it's trying to show that like I'm committed to this. I said I was good. I do what I say I was going to do, and I'm going to be there.
And that's obviously well received. People saw that commitment and built that relationship with you, and that relationship stood the test of time. If a project gets into some challenging times, you've got a relationship that you have built that means that you can work together to overcome any issues. And it's collaborative. There's not a conflict. It's collaborative. Now, the same with me. You came and you were in the middle of nowhere, and I decided I'll take you to your conference. So we actually spent maybe 2.5 hours in my car driving from one city to the other. And in it, we had a fantastic conversation and got to know each other.
We did. Yeah, it was marvelous because for me, like the relationship community, because I came from a classroom, which was a community itself. For me, the community, both at CAD Talk, but broader, our partners, people we work with, are people like you. To me, that's a big part of like what I enjoy is working with the people, learning from them, providing, helping them, making that commitment, because that's the background that I came from. It was, I remember thinking, wow, this guy, we've met a few times, but, came and we took me a couple hours to the event. We had dinner together, and it just really, it was a nice, just that commitment of like, hey, we're here together working on this, and if we can build that relationship, and then in the future we may never come across again, but we may, right? And so if we do, we have that relationship, and it's just much nicer to have that. So I always, when I go to any kind of IFS comes to me, or any other Infor or any other ERP we work with, right? I try to come to me. I say, I'm in it to win it for you. Right, even if there's two competitors, and I'm going to do whatever I can to help you win this, because I'm committed to my word of doing the best possible job I can. Because it's not just for you; it's for the customer. It's for the outcome.
Absolutely, and I think your value proposition from CAD into ERP, it is incredibly powerful in terms of if you can free up the engineers. So that they're not doing part management type activities, which take a tremendous amount of time. And if you're doing it manually, you could make loads of mistakes. And there'll be people listening into this podcast who are manufacturing engineers and design engineers, and they know that working with bombs is not the best, not the area where they want to be spending their time. But actually, if you're going to make something, the accuracy of that bomb is really important, because if you don't have all the bits, you can't assemble the finished product. And if you've not got the right quantities, you're going to look a bit dumb. So being able to make sure it comes directly off the CAD model and being able to send that information to ERP with confidence that the integrity of the data's there, and that's not an engineering function, that maybe the project lead would do that piece of work. That's really powerful, right? So I think that using this kind of software has a major role to play in lots of businesses who currently do this process day in, day out manually. And maybe they don't know that there's these software tools now available against lots of different CAD systems that with some investment could actually take away a very mundane process, right? Especially in the engineering businesses that are having rapid prototypes, where actually the frequency of revisions is so fast that what they did, well, even at the beginning of the shift, has been superseded by engineering and by 4 or 5 revisions, right? Keeping control of that and ensuring downstream that the procurement piece and the manufacturing piece are in synergy with that design, it's critical. And the lead times for things are getting shorter and shorter. And I've had the privilege of working in the motorsport marketplace, where time is critical and engineering design plays a major part in the performance of the car. And so making sure that we can design and execute something into operations quickly and effectively, and we can buy the right materials and assemble it and test it. That makes a very, very successful team a winning team, and so having all of the systems aligned is really, really important.
One thing I was going to double click on there that you mentioned, which I totally agree with, is the idea. Like, one of the things we try to tell people too, it's like not just the time savings of the engineer, but also the quality of the data feeding into those larger systems like the ERP. We used to have an ad that we put out that was like, ERP doesn't work without a bill of material, because everything kind of is like the cornerstone data, right? It's like everything is driven from that data that comes out of the design, the planning, the scheduling, the procurement, all of that. And by having that data come over and be more seamless and consistent, it makes the ERP run better. It makes all the operations run better. And you get these kind of like, you almost get more benefit from the ERP by having that be correct than just the time savings itself. Yeah.
100%. So the data integrity is absolutely key to execution. I've worked in areas where we made aircraft carriers. So huge projects, and ERP was responsible for the material supply, all of the work order, all of the kits, all of the shop order assemblies, the procurement, etc. Major turnkey type projects. If that data is not correct, then you're going to get loads and loads of delays, loads of impact to the overall program, and things are going to run extremely late. So integrity of data and the consistency of that is just as important as the efficiency to the processes that it brings.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what do you think? I mean, what do you think prevents businesses from taking those kinds of projects on, right? Those, not just CAD talk, but any automation or improvement. What do you think is preventing those? If they have a legacy ERP or a new system, what is do you think prevents them from doing it? If it's so compelling, what stops them?
I think sometimes it's that the people in the business have a solution, and they haven't, if you like, the desire to automate a process. What you need is obviously people now looking at continuous improvement. So this is something that's really coming into advanced manufacturing now, is the idea that we're not standing still. We actually need to continuously improve our processes. Now, because I've worked in the automotive industry, I saw that, very, very early on. A die change in the press shop at Vauxhall's in 1983 took 8 hours. Now it takes 8 minutes. That's night and day. If you look at lots of other processes, they don't stand still, they improve. With software, I still think there's the opportunity to automate a lot more than is currently automated. Some of it's for compliance, not just efficiency. So if you take bank payments, bank transactions, you really want to take any manual intervention away from a bank process so that it's fully automated. And e-invoicing is another example. Supplier invoices coming in, you want to take all the manual steps out of that. You want to scan it, match it, and create your posting proposal to pay the suppliers on time. Because again, that's probably part of the strategic plan, is that the compliance to paying in the correct timeline is one of the strategic objectives, and reducing the overall time and effort it takes to do the accounts payable process is another probably continuous improvement type thing. So I would say that the engineering team are very usually concentrating on their engineering processes, their PLM, their CAD, their modeling, etc., etc. That bridge to operations is often just thrown over the wall, and I think that's where the opportunity is to, there's a lot of companies out there that could automate and streamline that bridge. So I think it's exciting that we're at a point now that the technology's there, the capability is there, and definitely the need is there from businesses if they want to try and optimize those processes instead of having someone basically manually keying in bombs or into Excel and migrating them in that way. It's exciting.
Yeah. So what do you think is like, where is it for manufacturing companies? I mean, I think I'm not sure in the UK, but in America for sure, manufacturing companies are on a lot of legacy systems, right? Old systems that have not upgraded, and now that they're needing to do that for various reasons, wanting to go to the cloud or that sort of thing. Where do you think like ERP and manufacturing is going? Is it where do manufacturers, when they're looking at upgrading, are they looking at their current ERP? Maybe it's recent. Where is ERP going to go in terms of manufacturing? Of course, CAD Talk or an integration solution like ours is one thing, but is that more of the same, or what do you see as kind of the direction for?
I think the ERP market has gone through 15 years of massive change. There's a lot of ERP vendors have merged, and some of them have fallen by the wayside. So, and also you've got sort of the big league, the top 6 type ERP vendors, and then you've got the mid-market that, is a lot less complex, simpler to implement, smaller budgets, but not really that scalable. So you've got different types of ERP markets out there. And again, they're very good at segmenting themselves. So different ERP vendors have got sweet spots in different types of markets. So, there's a wide choice out there. But certainly I think that you've got an aging SAP product that's there, with a new offering. But the transition to move from their current SAP to the new cloud-based SAP solution, it has got its challenges, and there are other more maybe cost-effective solutions there out in the marketplace now. So a customer has got a difficult decision to say, do I stick with what I know and upgrade or re-implement? Or do I actually go back out to the market and have another look and say, well, in the last 15 years, are there other products now that actually are a better fit for us? And maybe we should take. So there's a lot of companies now helping customers go through that reevaluation in the marketplace, and some of them are choosing different cloud-based solutions for sure. So, yeah, I think it is an aging market. And certainly my observation is there's not enough resources in the market, consulting resources, to match the demand. It's a very interesting time.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like, you mentioned mentorship, right? Which is so important. I mean, as even I tend like to start to mentor some of our folks and talk. How do you get people interested in something like this, right? I mean, and mentor them, because the mentorship program is important. As you said, like, how do you get people excited about, I mean, if you're an engineer, right, you got into engineering because you want to build stuff, or you want to make products, or it doesn't sound super exciting to say, I'm going to implement an ERP.
So what tends to happen is, in a group of maybe 20 that's in the team of ERP, very quickly you can say, well, that person's going back to the business and they'll be awesome. They'll be completely using the system, getting the best out of it. And that's what they like doing. They like their job, their day job, and they can't wait to get back into their day job. Brilliant. But there's other people on the team that actually go, I really like improving things, Steve. I've got a taste for this. And they've got the aptitude for it as well. So they go, oh, I could go into manufacturing and I could actually really improve how we schedule our materials and how we kit them and how we manage shortages. And there's an opportunity to get into quality and have better traceability on our products, and we could get into the supply chain and help improve the supply, and so their mind works in such a way is that suddenly they're looking at various aspects of ERP, not just one silo, but they're actually looking at the end-to-end, which is where the power is in an organization, is not being silo driven, but trying to integrate and optimize the processes between interdepartments so that, it's like a football team, even an American football team. They've all got to be playing to the same strategy and know all of the defensive moves and the attacking, the offense moves. And it's when it clicks, you see magic. So I see that in project teams. I see people come in and I go, this guy's got massive potential. And so I'll get alongside, or this girl's got massive potential. I'll get alongside this person. And if they want help and support, I'll give them that help and support. And for me, I get a real buzz about seeing someone develop and grow. So I've seen a number of people come through a customer into consultancy and now are, sort of senior consultants within partner programs. And sometimes they come back onto my projects as the senior consultant, which is great. I've got a couple of examples of that happening at the moment. So again, that brings real pleasure to see their success. And again, success and how you measure success. For me, it's about the team, and it's about making sure that the team and the customer gain sort of the delivery and the KPIs are met, but more importantly, that the relationships that you build, they're not just finished at the end of a project. I've got lots and lots of friends who were customers and colleagues from 25 years ago, and I'm still in contact with them regular. We still talk about the war stories of the project and the ups and downs that it went through. And do you remember that day that we did X? And I think it was the Queen's Jubilee. One of them was a bank holiday, and we were sitting there cutting over an ERP from one into a new one. But you remember those times. They're special, and you get to know their family, and so I think this kind of role in this job is more than just a job. You're investing an awful lot of time with a client, and hopefully that time is really positive, and you build longer lasting friendships through it. It's quite special.
Yeah, the way you describe it's very. I want to kind of wrap up because we're getting a little. But what you describe it's very much what I felt like when I was as a teacher, in the sense that like you're mentoring, you're coaching, you're working with them, and you really wanted them to be successful in their lives. That was their success was your success, and that community, right, where you have those war stories or you have that community is so powerful because it really is. Not many people, because I'm unique and then weird, I guess, in the sense that like I came from a teaching background. I always would say like these things are very similar and people may not see it, but for me, it's always about, it is that relationship, that building, that working together, seeing those people mature and grow and make me a better person as well, right? Help me grow into a new role myself, right? Because at some point you kind of mastered all the skills of implementing an ERP or implementing a software or project managing. That just becomes just a process for you, like riding a bike. Whereas now some of the other things are much more exciting. Well, Steve, I really appreciate it. Been here almost an hour. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with us before we let you go? And I know you're in the UK, so it's 5 hours ahead. So you're getting close to. Hopefully, you post dinner. Maybe you're going to have a brandy or something in the evening. I don't know, but.
But the plan is I'm going for a pint after this.
That's what I wondered.
There you go. You can even see the dark coming in as we've been talking on this side. It's definitely getting nighttime over.
So I'd just like to thank you for the opportunity to have this chat together. I think you guys are doing an amazing job, and it's really a real pleasure working with you. And I look forward to the opportunities of working with you again on future projects.
Yes, again, thanks for coming on, Steve, and of course, thanks for picking me up, for doing all those things. I'm just really excited to have you here on this conversation. It's the opportunity to learn from you, right? Get your experience. That's really been enjoyable. So thank you.
Yeah, this is a great example of great people to work with. And that's the best part. That's the best part of this, is to be able to work with great people and have these types of conversations. It's a lot of fun. So.
It is a lot of fun. Thanks, guys. Have a great evening.
All right, Steve. Enjoy that pint.
I will.
Thanks.